Welcome to the Businessmen and Women of Color podcast. I am your host, Ann Austin, and it is my pleasure to bring quality programs to all of you. I am so excited to be back again this year. Please be sure to check out all of the podcasts that are going to be on this segment today, because I can tell you if you stay tuned and listen to this podcast, your mind is going to be blown away. We have an extraordinary speaker, surprise guest speaker, that's going to be on here today, so you don't want to miss that. Also, make sure you take advantage of all the other pages and make sure you go to every single podcast and listen to those, because these people are providing such good information that you definitely want to take care of this unique opportunity. Just in case you did not know, the purpose of the Businessmen and Women of Color podcast is to not only share our business information, but we're also encouraging career seekers and working professionals to enter their line of work. And this means that we are creating new industries and building a stronger community. We also would like to take a moment to thank our corporate partners and sponsors, our family of authors, Butler Armstead Consulting Solutions, Human Resource Learning Center, J&F Enterprises, and Women Offering Wealth, along with many of our business partners and sponsors who's helping to make this event a success. So today we have on our podcast one of the most influential young men that's out here in Prince George's County, Maryland, who is really making a difference, who is standing up to be a leader and to exemplify someone who we would like to represent as our leader here in the county. And I want to bring to the podcast Everett Browning. Everett Browning is a retired U.S. Navy Chief Petty Officer and combat veteran who dedicated his life to fighting to protect the freedoms and rights of others. Currently, he is the Senior Vice President for a veteran-owned minority business, which provides program and financial oversight to the Department of Defense and intelligent community agencies. He is also the Vice President of Mentoring for the 100 Black Men of Prince George's County, Maryland. Everett possessed over 25 years of experience in strategic and tactical Department of Defense intelligence operations, and he possessed a dynamic background in cryptologic analysis, program management, risk assessment, acquisition, and finance. His accolades go on to become a public servant with the community as an activist, as he leads collaborative efforts with politicians, business leaders, educators throughout the country. I really want people to really look at his bio and really understand what Everett does. And so, Everett, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much, and for having me. Most importantly, thank you for all you do in this community, helping small businesses get themselves out and understand different ways that they can become successful.
Okay.
So I appreciate all you're doing.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I am so honored to have you here, and thank you so much for serving our country.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first thing I would like to kind of get into is who is actually Everett Browning. Tell us a little bit about your background, what inspired you to go into the military, and maybe an idea of what led you to the efforts that you are doing right now.
Well, I was born in Hampton, Virginia, born and raised, and actually, like many young men trying to find themselves, I became a teenage father. So when I became a teenage father, just from the lessons I learned from my parents about responsibilities, I forego a few college scholarships and joined the Navy. Luckily, when I joined the Navy through testing, I was able to get into the field of cryptology and intelligence, which allowed me unique accesses to the world of Department of Defense, National Security Agency, and other intel agencies, which opened my eyes to the possibility of serving my country in different ways and took me around the world. So I went from being not only a teenage father, but for a while a single father. So the focus on making sure that my kids the opportunity to see success far beyond my imagination, that they didn't know any struggles and that they understood what responsibility really meant became my focal point, and always pushing the bar so that they always had something higher to strive for. So in the military, serving 22 years across, like you thank you for my bio, around the world and several combat tours, I was able to grow a lot of skills that went outside of just counterterrorism, but it moved into program management and acquisition and leadership. And once I retired, I was able to first sell myself to the government based on my skills to work to become a contractor. And then once I did that and started building my business, I'll start giving back to my community. I have I have four kids. Three of them are now graduate from college, and a fourth is serving in the Marines. So as proud of my kids, they're grown and they're being successful. So I look back at our community and serving with the 100 Black men of Prince George's County allowed me to work with a lot of young individuals. But working with these young individuals, I realized that helping them once or twice throughout the week wasn't enough because I was putting them right back into an environment that was non conducive for their growth. So my focus had to be on fixing the community. I tell people all the time, it's almost like PTSD. We don't treat PTSD for someone who's in a war zone because they need those skills of being on edge and combative skills in order to survive. And what we was trying to do, while we was trying to give these kids life skills and career skills, we were putting them back sometimes in a war zone. So my focus turned to fixing the community, and that would help the kids in a whole. And that kind of led me to my public service and eventually led me to my decision to run for a state senate.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so that was some really good information. I want to kind of step back a little bit in the beginning of your conversation about how you got into cryptography. Now, just so that I understand, and also for people who are looking at you as someone that they want to become, because your background is very impressive. Even when I read your background is very impressive, and it just seems like it's just one of those rare occasions that we see someone like us rise to this type of occasion. So what I want to do is focus a little bit about, were you going into cryptography based on when you were in the military? What was your reason for going into the military? So that I know there's a lot of people listening who think about going to the military, but what I'm trying to also get at is providing information for those who entered the military so that they can make an informed decision on whether they should or should not, based on what they're trying to do, if you know what I'm saying.
Exactly, and I understand. For a lot of reasons, there have been a lot of pushback with our community in the military. And I tell people from a certain degree, if you're not college bound or if you're not mature, if you don't have a job lined up, the military is a good way to do one of many things. One, to mature, to build friendships, to learn about responsibility. The second thing is the opportunity to learn a dynamic skills. When you're going into the military, I told everyone it's important to sit down with your recruiter and find out exactly what your job is going to be, and then look online and see how transferable is that job in the civilian community. I mean, understand there's some people in the military and there's certain jobs you have to do from a warfighter point of view, but you have to look and say, well, how can I transfer this into a career? When my son was going to Marines, I told him find a job you can do, and so he went into the Marines as a certified jet mechanic. So he became a jet mechanic in the Marines. And he was able to work for 4 or 5 years and get his certifications as a civilian. And then when he leaves the Marine, he has a career. So the military offers every career from being a cook, like to me, I said being a cryptologist, to being in the intel field, to being a doctor, to being a lawyer. Realizing you're going to sacrifice your time, you're going to sacrifice some of the freedoms you have. However, you're going to walk out of there with experience, with the certifications, and a certain way that employers are going to look at you. The military allowed me to buy several homes through the VA loan process, which allowed me to be a homeowner, landowner, to rent homes out. I was able to go to college for free and get my all the way up to my master's degree for free through the military. So I was able to get my degrees with no college loans to pay back. I was able to buy homes through the VA loan, which meant no money down. And after 20 years, I was able to retire, and now I get for the rest of my life a retirement check. So whether you do 4 years or 20 years, the military is going to be hard, but the focus has to be, what am I going to get back out of it? And what am I going to be trained to do, and how am I going to translate that into a civilian job?
Yeah, absolutely. And one other point I want to add to your list, Everett, is that in military or in the workforce or wherever you are, you have to be disciplined enough to follow through. Discipline and follow through are the two key things that you have to do in any time that you're entering the military or even just walking in the door for a new job. You have to have both of those things in order to make it. You have to have that mindset that when you go in, there's an end to your purpose, and that's to go there, do a service, take care of your family, and go home and enjoy your life. And if you're not doing that, you're pretty much doing yourself a disservice. So I just wanted to add that to your list. So getting back to the military and all that, what was some of the things that you learned in the cybersecurity realm that you think will be helpful for people who are entering cybersecurity? Because while you got in through the military, there are many people who are trying to get into cybersecurity positions, and they don't have no idea what it's going to take to even qualify or what it looks like. And I wanted to get your perception on what it's like to work in a cybersecurity environment or to even do things that are cybersecurity like.
Yeah, the one I say another big advantage I was given in the military is that the military processed me from the time I was 18 years old for a top secret SCI clearance. So that gave me access that other people didn't have. And then when I got out, that clearance gave me a big jump ahead on other people trying to get jobs. So the biggest thing is going to be in the intel field, whether it's cybersecurity and a lot of the government agency, is your ability to get a clearance. And so that background check and polygraphs means that you have to live, uh, you have to keep your nose clean, and you have to start early. And so it's imperative for parents who have kids that they find out early who want to be involved in those fields to remind them of that small steps, certain things can be forgiven, but you have to, there's a sacrifice for whether it is the opportunity and the access. The trust factor has to be there. The second thing is if someone, when I talk to young people all the time, is to reach out to these different agencies. Most agencies have high school work study programs that will get you in and get your clearance going. Now, if you're coming in and you're an adult and you got your degree and you want to walk into those fields, you have to decide how do you want to serve? What first thing is, do you want to be a contractor or do you want to be a government employee? Uh, each process, is a different path. As we talk about business owners, a lot of time I talk to business owners say, hey, I want to get into the intel field and the security field, and I want to build my business. And I ask them, who do you know? Because it's not what you know when you're government contracting, and I think that's a misconception in this area, where a lot of people feel as if, well, I know so many people in these big companies, and I hear about the government getting with these big contracts. I want to get a part of it. But if you're not bringing unique skill to the table, then it's going to be hard for you to build a company in cybersecurity, intelligence, and things of that nature. If you're just coming in, you're just a program manager, or you're just an acquisition person, or you're just cybersecurity, realizing that there are 1,000 people in this area with those qualifications. So if you don't have a unique skill, it becomes, why should someone give you opportunity besides giving you a job? So, and I think a lot of African Americans who start their companies, I see hundreds of them who just never get past just them being an employee because they don't understand how the government works as far as building a successful contracting company. And there are certain things they just don't teach you in books. You're not going to learn at your local networking class or sitting down or going through the MBE course.
Okay, so what are some of the key things? I know you can't list all of them here on this podcast, but what are some of the key things that a small business or someone who's trying to enter that need to have just from the beginning before they even start? Because I'm pretty sure they go and they get their business license and they do a LLC or whatever they do, and they go to SAM registration and sign up and go to FedBiz and they do all that. But what is the most important thing that businesses often miss that they really should know about?
If you're going into government contracting and you're looking to go beyond being just an employee, you want to grow a business. The first thing that you have to be willing to sell is yourself. Meaning, if when I'm looking at someone and you come to me, you say I'm qualified and I want to get a job. You have to advertise yourself, and then get your resume out there for you. So if I'm looking for employees and I see your resume and you can fit this company, I'll come to you and the first thing I was going to say, well, I'm a company, you want to hire me as a 1099. Well, at that point, unless you have a very unique and specific cyber or technical skill that no one else does or very few have, I'm just like, well, why should I? And if I hire you as a 1099, there's no incentive to the grow. So I tell people it's like a three-step process. First, get your foot in the door. I understand. Get your foot in this door and get in that door and make yourself an invaluable part of the team. Learn as much as you can and volunteer to help out the PM, help out the task lead, talk to the government people, and get yourself as more than just an employee, someone that the government wants around. So what's going to happen eventually, that effort is going to be recompeted. And if you worked hard when it's recompeted, you have a conversation with the prime. You said, you have to learn how to, people know how to leverage. The biggest leverage is leveraging the government vendor, the government customer, for them to say, we want Ann to stay. She knows what she's doing. Make sure you keep her around. Even though they can't officially do by name requests, they let it be known that someone is a valuable part of the team. And it's important to make yourself valuable, meaning take the hard jobs and do it to the point that you got it. Make yourself almost a single point of failure, meaning when you're not there, people get nervous because you're taking on all the hard jobs and you're owning them. So they kind of need you around and they trust you as almost a linchpin that, no one, and I just said, you don't really train a lot of people to do your job. You just do it and make it a vital thing. So when the recompete comes, you tell either the company you're with, and they say, well, we're going to recompete, and say, all right, if you want me to re-sign and recommit with you, I need you not to sign me. I need you to sign my company up. And and they said, well, no, we won't do it. So okay, well, fine then. I'm in Maryland, being at Will State. So I'm not going to sign a non-compete. I'm going to talk to other people who are. You go talk to other people who are bidding, and you tell them, I know insight about this thing. Now, what you bring that is valuable is not your technical skills, but you have insight about that customer. You understand, like, I can help you write your tech writings. I know what they like, what they don't like. I know their operating procedures. I know how to do things. I can help you write a winning strategy proposal that the government wants to see because I've been in there. Now you have something unique because that new person want to win that contract. They don't know. You say, I will help you win under the conditions of you bring my company on with them. Usually you say with the possibility of work share. And they may push back, and that's fine. If you can push and get work share at that point, that's great. But the biggest thing you want to get is hire your company. So whoever wins hires your company is no longer like Ann as an employee, but your company. Now you start getting past performance for your company. Now, once you start getting past performance for your company's on the books, you can start getting them to help you process your company for their individual facility clearances, which is a huge thing to have. You can get them to process your company to get on a PISA list, which allows you to bring on people to get them cleared, to pay people to go through the clearance process when you bring them on. It allows you to get them to help you get a DCAA audit. So the key is to make yourself, whether it's a skill that you know or the people that you know or your position with the government customer, to be able to leverage your expertise to make them hire your company and not you, and then you go from there.
Wow, Everett. I'm pretty sure they like me, they writing down all of these notes and everything. And that is really phenomenal because this is the type of information that a lot of small businesses don't even know about in terms of how to contract with the federal government or any type of government on any level. Because a lot of times we go to the SBA websites, we go to all the different websites in our county, and it's all sort of scattered throughout the internet, but it's not in a way where you just broke it down in a way that we can understand on how to actually do this. Now, I just want to also add this caveat to what Everett's saying is that in addition to that, you have to be able to set yourself up in the system to even do all of that. So that means
Yes.
making sure that you have your DUNS number, making sure you're registered with the SAM registration, making sure that you have the proper certifications for your business, whether you're a disadvantaged, woman-owned, minority, however you want, making sure that you have other things set up, like your EIN number and making sure that you are a legal business. There's other things that you have to have in place before you can even attempt to do any of the stuff that Everett is talking about. So, so Everett, that was definitely fantastic, and I'm pretty sure that this could go on forever into
Yeah.
another podcast. Um, but I definitely appreciate the fact that again you broke it down to layman's terms where this is what you have to do. And yes, it is a lot of work. It is not pretty. It is a lot of work and it's
It's not,
hard.
and you are right. When you go to someone and say, "Hey, I want you to hire my company," they're gonna look for any reason for you to be ineligible. So you gotta have your ducks in a row. You gotta have your ducks in a row. And they say, "Well, do you have this? Yes. Do you have this? Yes." You say, "I have all my stuff together. If you want me to help you win this contract, this is what it's going to take." Recompete is the only time you have leverage. It's the only time. If when you go in there, when they're competing for a new contract, that's when new companies are the most vulnerable to whether it's pay, whether it's opportunities, whether it's BD work, is because they need that new work, and so they have to make those deals. Especially if you're saying, "I'm bringing these people to the table." I can, and if you could talk to your fellow colleagues, say, if we stick together, we can dictate our terms. You find the key personnel that's doing the key jobs, that's listed on whether it's the statement of work or procedural, whatever it may be. So I have the people who's doing it already that the government knows, and these people only come back with me.
Okay.
So sometimes you have to start leveraging those type of relationships early and get yourself to be invaluable to the recompete.
Okay, so let me ask you just one last question on this segment, and then I'll turn it
Okay.
to a different segment. What is the best way to either just start your research? Because I know I'm looking for my research now. I think we had a conversation about how I'm actually looking to see what type of services that the government is looking for. You have FedBiz Ops and you have grants.gov. And what is the best way for a small business to start looking at their potential work with the government, just so they know what the requirements are, what the proposal should look like, and maybe offer some tips that maybe is not visible out there on the website?
Biggest thing I can tell, and I'm not talking from the state level, which is kind of different. Which I'm just talking from a federal government level. I tell people you're not going to get a prime contract off the bat unless you are leaving as the president of Northrop Grumman. You're starting your own company. You have those connections. And by the time you see something on FedBiz, or even if you pay $20,000 and you see something on GovWin, you are already a year behind. By the time you see it, they've already decided who's on what team, who they need, how they're going to bid it, and people are already probably halfway through writing their proposal. So the focus, like I would say for small businesses, and this was the motto me and my partner took, is don't go chasing work because you're behind, because these companies are in the office and they know my contract is up in a year and a half, so they're already getting prepared with it. And other companies have people in their office having those conversations with the small business owners. I would say to a certain degree, sometimes it helps to go to different agencies and sit down and talk with the small business administration office if they have one there. But the biggest thing is that to have them come find you. Whatever most companies, small companies, are based on the skills of a founder. Well, I'm a tech person, I'm an HR person, I'm a PR person, I'm acquisition, whatever you may be. Push your resume out there, because when they decide that they're going to start going after this, they're looking for people to fill these positions. Have them come find you and say, these are the opportunities we're going after. And then they'll come find you before you can find the new opportunities. And that gets your foot in the door and say, all right, 3 or 4 companies have called me about this opportunity. So obviously I bring something unique to this table. Let me look into, then you can start researching about the opportunity, who's there, what's going on, and then you're able to leverage your work to say, how much is my worth and how much can I leverage from that. But government and FedBiz is a good way to understand the process. There are, and I know a lot of companies who get real big into, well, I need to learn how to write a proposal to respond to an RFP. As a small company, you're not doing that because you're going to be the sub. So the best thing to do is when you get on working with the government, most established companies, they have a built-in system. Let them train you on how it's done. Use their sources. Say, all right, you guys competing on this as part of I would like to be a part of the proposal building process. Let me be a part of your red team, your gold team, and learn from them how it's put together and get your training that way. Because taking a class on the outside or breaking your neck, taking all these acquisition for government courses online, that's not, they don't really translate that well because each agency expects to see proposals in a different way. And most companies who's working in that arena, they know that. So they usually have a team, a set up team of proposal writers, and they have a system, and they always need help. So you just learn from them, take their techniques, and then you apply it to your own. Save stuff all of. Pay attention. Okay, this is how you write that. This is how they do this. This is how they do the testing, the rewriting. This is how the volume. You get copies of the stuff, and then you start editing for your own for down the line. And then so it'll probably be a couple of years before you're ready to prime. So while you're subbing, you're just learning from the primes how it's done. But a
Wow.
lot of times you're looking online,
Hmm.
people think, well, I'm going to win a contract. You're not going to win a government contract the first time out if you just one person deep. You're not going to win a government contract out probably if it's just you with two or three people. It's not going to happen. You just don't have the resources, the money it costs to even put a proposal together, the capital. I mean, and you bid on maybe let's say 20 things a year, and you pray that you win four. But that cost of 20 proposals in a year, that could, depends on where you at, that can run you almost $100,000, and a lot of them you're not going to get anything out of it. So if you don't have that capital built up, don't focus on what the government is putting out, the federal government is putting out. Focus on people coming to you and learning from them.
That is some awesome, awesome advice. And I hope everybody who's listening to this podcast is really taking this in because there are opportunities out there. You just have to get yourself lined up and get your ducks in a row, like he said, to do that. So, with the next segment, Everett, I want to turn to the 100 Black Men of Prince George's County and tell me how did you stumble across this opportunity and what exactly is the 100 Black Men of Prince George's County for everybody who may not know?
Well, the 100 Black Men of Prince George's County is a one of I think 140 chapters of 100 Black Men of America, which is located around the country and around the world, with chapters in London and in the Caribbean. The organization is over 60 years old with a focus on, it's the largest minority youth mentoring organization for focus on mentoring, education, health and wellness, and economic empowerment. And it started as a group of powerful Black men wondering how can we use our collective resources to provide opportunities for youth and their families to make sure they're successful regardless of circumstance. Many men who started, and even now today, were the first African Americans to walk into certain offices or certain careers, and then they look back and years later they're the only one there. And unfortunately, some of us oftentimes walk into business meetings or different venues, and we find our own ourselves there. So it's about building up not only our replacements but opening doors wider that are open for us. So the 100 Black Men of Prince George's County is one of the youngest chapters, being 5 years old, because there's a chapter in D.C. and there's a chapter in Baltimore, and we realized that Prince George's County, as we looked at it being the most affluent, educated African American counties in the country, there still was a gap. There still was, we're ranking towards the bottom in education. We're ranking towards the bottom in regards to employment, youth employment, and ranking towards, unfortunately, the top when it came to youth incarceration. And so realizing that in this area of federal government, it would take a lot for our kids to compete, and that they, anything that kept them a step behind for STEM training or career building, that was missing. We brought the tenements of the 100. I've been involved with the 100, one way or another for over 20 years. My father is just on the executive board of the 100 Black Men of America, and he's been involved over 20 years. So I've seen the 100 grow. And for me, it took me, many years to get to the point of my life where I felt as if I had accomplished enough, had enough knowledge and resources to become a member of the 100, meaning that I would have the time. Um, I had the time came to me because my kids, all three of my kids graduated from college, and so at the time, I had the resources, being out the military and successful business that I had grown. I had the resources to give back, and in the community, I had been here long enough to make the connections to reach out to. Recently, I reached out to Bowie State, and I started a Cellular Leadership Academy, or reach out to a golf course and start a golf program. We've been able to reach out to different high schools and businesses to start a Silicon 100, where we're actually teaching kids how to write code. So the purpose of, and the thing about it is, we don't only focus on the kids, we focus on the family. It's a holistic approach. So we might not have as many kids as other mentoring programs, and that's because we make sure we have enough kids that we can give them total investment. We know the teachers, we know the principals, we know the parents, the grandmothers, the aunts. We show up to their football games, their recitals. We take them to work with us, and so it's hard to do that with a large group of kids, without limited resources. All of us, most of us being business owners, doctors, lawyers, in the community. So, we have to work around our schedules, but we want to make sure the kids we do have, we have to give them a unique insight to their possibilities of being great.
That is phenomenal. So, how many kids would you say you have helped over the 5 years that you've worked with them?
Uh, well, and it's funny. A lot of times we talk about quantifiable, and data. I know we've worked with hundreds of kids, one way or another, coming through our system, at different age groups. Not only in our system, but we also started going into the schools. We realized the parents who were coming to us and bringing our kids to us for help. A lot of times, uh, fortunately, there were the parents who cared about their kids' futures. But there were a lot of kids at school who parents, unfortunately, weren't invested in these kids. So they weren't calling us and asking to get this kids enrolled. So we started going to the schools and talking to, having seminars at the schools, and try to be a part of Men's Day in schools or Teacher for a Day in school, and walking around and just trying to reach as many kids as possible. We usually average about, and I act in between our major programs, we usually average about 75 kids a year. But then we try to do everything. We have an open process we call Boys Read at Spalding Library in Suitland every Monday, where any young man can come in, and we sit down and talk about leadership, and we let them, read different books out loud, in a safe environment where there's no girls to tease them and everyone's encouraging. So we try to have, while we have our strict programs, we try to have open programs where anyone can come and get some service from us. So I would say
That
hundreds,
is
close to 1,000 kids going through our
right. And
process.
we need to know more about when you're having these types of programs and that's the whole reason why I really wanted to have this type of thing and you on this podcast, because we need to be able to share this information and get more parents involved. One of the reasons why I volunteer for STEM programs, because I noticed that a lot of parents, and even myself when I was a younger parent, I wasn't as involved in my child's education. And now I see that that was a mistake. That's something that we need to foster. And so I'm realizing that if we show up and be an example, then they are motivated. And I really want to applaud the fact that you working with our young men, we are losing our young men. I would like to encourage everyone to reach out to you so that we can further help our young men and not be lost to the streets and drugs and being killed and things of that nature. We want them to feel empowered and to enter the type of work that you're entering, because it is, to me, exemplifies an example for all young men to look up to. And so I'm encouraging everybody who's listening to this podcast to, reach out to anybody on this podcast, reach out to you to get more information on how they can participate in your program. So, what other initiatives are you currently working on, Everett? I know that you're running for the Senate, you're doing your thing. If you want to talk a little bit about what is your end goal for the next couple of years?
Well, a couple, and one of the main thing, I'll talk about running for office is about empowering our community. One of my big focus when I looked at Prince George's County was the lack of understanding of generational wealth, and that's my main focus. Not only what I'm doing in the community, but also, running for office is to establish an infrastructure of not only education, but also economic development. That 20, 30, 40 years from now, this county remains a epicenter of Black education and Black growth. Because right now, when I looked at my kids coming out of college and they were looking for careers, there was nothing here for them to come back to. And so it's kind of hard when a lot of us send our kids away from school and then they have to go somewhere else to kind of find jobs to settle down. Then when they looked at the taxes and the opportunities for young adults to come here and grow, it was impossible. So, attracting the young, enthusiastic people to this county with jobs and opportunity that's affordable and safe was a hard thing to do. But working with them, and also outside of, before I get to get the campaign, working with as many youth and also senior groups to help protect a lot of seniors' homes are in jeopardy due to taxes and different reasons. So helping seniors understand and protect themselves financially is another advocate focus that I'm on. And then veterans, we have a big problem with veterans coming home and they're not prepared to adjust to society financially or able to get the jobs and the resources they need. So I work with a lot of veteran organizations to help either retirees or young men or women who were in combat to adjust and make sure they can process an appreciation for the service and sacrifice they did for our country. So running for office is a unique thing in this county. I've been told a lot that this county is kind of run by a system, and you have to be a part of the network. But I realize what's missing is a grassroots effort. Our voter turnout is low because there's not a lot of push for voter education and voter involvement. So that's the main focus of my campaign is to get. When I tell people I'm not worrying about votes, I'm worried about folks right now. Just talking to folks, understand their vulnerability, because those who live in the county will realize there's a big dividing line as I've learned, as I say, inside and outside the Beltway, and there seems to be almost two different countries, instead of being the same county. So understanding that we can support those and give opportunities to those who need it from inside the Beltway without punishing those outside the Beltway and not punishing small businesses, not punishing homeowners with taxes and regulations by helping them sustain their homes. 1 in 4 homes in our county are upside down. People owe more than homes are worth. So you're looking down the line, that leads a lot to home turnover, evictions, and things and that hurts the school system when you have that big turnover. So it's just an investment in the community that starts with the education of the citizen and pushing citizens to be involved. I told people I've been around the world, I've seen the worst of the worst. And in my experience, whenever there's pain and suffering or people will not, there's pain and suffering, it's usually not because no one cares. It's because someone is profiting from it one way or another. It's usually not because everyone is turning their back.
Right.
Someone is profiting. So when our schools remain the second worst for this long, it's because somewhere somebody is profiting from that. And so as I focus to find out who's profiting from it and make sure that's and expose that and make sure that the profit that everyone sees there's more profit in the prosperity of our county than the things that's holding us back. And
Right.
that revitalizing our community shouldn't always equal just for gentrification.
Right. Exactly. And being a resident of Prince George's County, I can definitely relate and understand and identify with many of the things that you said about the high taxes and the turnover. As I look at my neighborhood since I've been here for, I will say, in this particular part of Prince George's County where I live now, for the past 10 years, I've seen people come and go, and I've seen houses just been sitting here well unoccupied for more than the time of that I've been here. And for me, it's kind of a sad thing because I know how difficult it was for me to get my home, and I can see some of the people here struggling to keep their home, but we have to get out of the mindset of, wanting to profit, like you said, and really grow the economy and really grow and foster the neighborhood so we can have a better buying power and that we can own our homes and our children can get the best education and go to college and get the best jobs out there. There's no way that we can bring jobs to a community if the community is suffering. And I totally agree with what you're saying because even when I look at my son, when he asked me literally yesterday, he said, Mom, I want you to help me find a job. And I'm thinking, okay, you have a certification, you have this, so let's see what you can get. But the only thing he can come up with was, I'm just going to work for a local grocery store. And I'm like, this can't be the only option for you. You have to have a bigger goal, and I definitely identify with everything you're saying, and I'm encouraging everybody that if you feel moved about what this conversation is about, let's get together, let's have a meeting, let's strategize, let's actually put some things in place that's going to move this forward, because this podcast is not just for people sitting here listening, it's for people to take action, to do something to resolve the problems within our minority community. And whether it's Prince George's County or Montgomery County or any other county or any other state, there has to be some way that we can lock our arms together and come together to build a community of resources where we actually make a difference. So, with that, Everett, with your
Yes.
efforts that what you're doing, what do you need in order to help you with what you're doing? What do you need from everybody who's listening and participating in this podcast?
Number one thing from a community point of view is we have to understand who our leaders are. I'll ask everybody on this podcast, if you don't know right now, go online and find out who's your school board member, who's your county council member, who's your who's your state delegate, who's your state senator. Regardless if you live in my district or not, look them up, call them, email them, and sit down and talk with them. Go to your school board meetings, go to your PTAs, go to the county board meeting and understand where the resources are going, understand what decisions are being made and how they affect you. Make sure your voice is heard. I can't stress it enough, the importance of voting and the consequences of what happens. If we go from, in certain districts, for example, you look at, my district 24, there's 75,000 registered Democrats. And in elections, only 13,000 people show up. If that number just goes up, just goes up by 10,000, it's not even close to 50%, not even close to, but just 10,000. What that does, that makes your district powerful, because at that point, 10,000 votes is the difference between who's county exec, who's a delegate, who's the governor. So those people in those positions said, well, this area is voting more. We need to make sure they're good because they have the power to take our jobs away. So they'll come and say, what do you guys need in this district? Because you're showing up to vote. Because you have enough new people voting that you can change, decide who's the governor or who's the congressman. So they're going to make sure your schools, your roads, your jobs are all set up. We don't have to understand the power of voting. And when it comes to school, uh, and I'll say this, we have to stop looking at it from a big point of view and get with your neighbors. If you get 50 of your neighbors, 100 of your neighbors, and go and sign a petition or ask for a meeting with your school board member and your county council member and say, look, we have 100 people here and live in this district. This is our elementary school. This is our middle school. This is our high school. We want to see change in 2 years, or this 100 people, we're going to find, each one of us is going to find 100 more people, and we're going to remove you. So I don't want to talk about the whole county right now. I'm talking about my schools for my kids and demand they change those. If you just get like 50 people and bring those two people in that room, because there might not, out of the $2.6 billion school budget for Prince George's County, there might not be enough money to fix every school. But I tell you, your school board member and your county council, if you show them that you're organized and will prepare to replace them, they'll find enough money to fix your schools. And everybody has to do that individually to build it
Right.
out.
Right, absolutely. So, with that, Everett, I want to thank you so much for sharing all of this wonderful information, because I can tell you we can go on all day because I have so many questions, but I want people to really step out of the box and really be open-minded to what Everett is saying. If you can talk to your neighbors, or if everybody who's listening to this podcast happen to live in the same neighborhood, have open mind, participate, get involved. It's not going to hurt anything to come together to make a difference in your neighborhood, whether it be the school system or the neighborhood in general, the stores or whatever it is. It's getting together to be one voice so that you can get something for your neighborhood that's going to benefit all. And so I want to also encourage everybody to please take a moment to go to all of the pages. We have over 54 speakers on this platform. Take a moment to go to the speakers, check out their pages, listen to their podcasts, and really take in the information and apply it. These podcasts is not just informational, but they are tools that you can use to help grow your business or to create a new industry that many has done already. And so with that, Everett, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast and
Uh,
being candid and sharing all this really great information.
yes, my website is www.electbrowning.com. My contact information on the website, my background, anyone who wants to volunteer or learn anything about politics. I tell people, even if you don't live in my district, you can't vote for me. If you want to learn about politics, if you want to learn about government and how to make a difference, contact me. I'll sit down with you, I'll talk to you, and I hope you become a political advocate in your neighborhood.